Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Very warm welcome. I extend greetings of peace on behalf of Manhattan Meditation Center and Peace Village Learning and Retreat Center of Brahma Kumaris. Before we start today's program, a very brief mention of the community services what Manhattan Center has planned for the rest of this month. So on Saturday, which is September 16th, there is a workshop. The title is Renew Yourself, Mind and Body. Timings are in the morning from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. On coming Monday, which is September 18th, we are offering a 7-day meditation course, Reviving the Higher Self. The course is being offered in the evening from 6:30 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All timings are in EST. Besides this, we offer, of course, these Thursday talks every Thursday from 6:30 to 7:30. There is an online meditation at noontime, Power Boost, from Monday to Friday. There's an in-person meditation in the evening from 6 to 6:30, Sanctuary of Peace at the Manhattan Meditation Center. We also have a podcast service available on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Amazon Music. So you have lots of tools available. All the recordings of this talk and the previous talks are available on our YouTube channel. When I say our, that means Manhattan Meditation Center's YouTube channel. And I'll post the link in chat in a little while. Please do subscribe to it. So today's topic: embracing the inevitable with serenity. We have two speakers joining us today, Dr. Rona Schweitz and Dr. Anjali Grover. They are going to share their thoughts and experiences on this topic. I'm going to invite them. Good evening. Good evening, Anjali. Good evening, Sister Rona. Very warm welcome.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Good evening here also in the center. Welcome. Welcome those on Zoom.
And Anjali, we don't hear you. Your mic is not working.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very, very warm welcome to each of you here in person and also those joining on Zoom. Feeling very grateful to be here with all of you to share on this very important topic, embracing the inevitable with serenity. I know it is a topic that can be filled with a lot of unknown, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of mixed feelings. And really, our wish from our heart today is from this sharing, you feel some more peace, a sense of healing, a sense of clarity regarding the end of life, honoring the end of life, and understanding all of that. How do we live our life differently now? And really invite you all that we are sitting here as friends, as family, as students of life together. We're just here to share, to grow, to support each other. So invite you to keep an open mind, open heart. Some of the things you may hear are new, some you may be hearing again. So, and we're going to keep it like a conversation between all of us, virtually, in person. And just to give you a little bit of background of where I am coming from. So I have been studying with the Brahma Kumaris for the last 7 to 8 years and work in the medical field as a doctor in both the hospital setting as well as the office setting. And given the recent experiences with the pandemic, I would say really had the gift of the opportunity to integrate, facing the medical world in terms of confronting illness, confronting end of life, but integrating that with beautiful spiritual truths. And so we really hope to share that all with you today. And maybe Rona, you can give a little bit of your background before we.
And I studied medicine in Holland quite some years back. There's some gray hairs already. And after that, I worked in psychiatry for a while, and I worked in refugee camps just as a general physician. And then I went to the Caribbean, where I worked in geriatrics and the pain clinic, and especially geriatrics and the pain clinic was, what would be the word? An eye-opening experience, dealing with people who are at the final stage of their life, or even at home, handling the pain medication and making them move on in a more comfortable way as possible. And one of the things I was always so surprised about is that they don't prepare you for the real things in medical school. The real things they don't really prepare you for. And you kind of learn, by the way, from others, of course, mainly you learn from the patients. But I was fortunate enough to come across the Brahma Kumaris and meditation and a meditation practice during my medical training. If not, I don't think I would have been able to. Psychiatry, I would definitely not been able to deal with in a dignified or serene way. So I think the spiritual truths and the practice for myself and the practice of meditation helped me deal with those things in a way that was definitely more dignified, but also rich in terms of lessons of life to learn, but also rich in terms of what you can mean for the other, except just giving medicine and some level of physical comfort as possible. But you can also, I remember one patient saying to me, everyone who comes in my room wants to get out as quickly as possible because they feel uncomfortable. But you are the only one who takes time and makes me feel peaceful because you are peaceful. And, you don't really, you can give Valium and whatever, but that is not the peace he was talking about.
And I agree with.
And sorry, and I have to finish. I practiced for, I don't know how many years, 17 or 18 years. And then I became very, very active in sharing and the service of the Brahma Kumaris. And at some stage I went, where did I go to I went to the Dominican Republic, and I couldn't practice there. And I thought I will just try for a year, set up a center, meditation center, and then maybe go back. But 1 year became 2 years and 3 years. And it's been now quite some years that I haven't practiced medicine, and now fully involved in the activities of the Brahma Kumaris. But very, very grateful for the lessons and the experiences whilst practicing medicine. But I don't mind not practicing. I'm fully dedicating my life to this. it kind of happened, but I don't mind that it is also a choice.
And I would love to kind of ask you, right? Because this whole topic of end of life, which is inevitable, right? It's filled with so much sadness and emptiness and difficulty in processing, right? Because I think our understanding of that process and what happens after is a bit limited. So, given your experiences in the refugee camps, in the psychiatric wards, end of life, what were some of the, because as you said, you were studying with the Brahma Kumaris already. So, what were some of the common themes, I would say, you noticed amongst people at the end of life? And for you, what spiritual truths really came to life and gave you strength to be able to serve those patients?
Well, for one thing, I think there are many things that are inevitable in life, not just the final moments. Of course, that is there also, but there are many things that are inevitable, and some of those things also we kind of dread. Maybe some family members that you don't get along with, but you can't go around it, or some certain whatever life situations that you just have to accept or have to learn to deal with, because you can't change them, or nobody can change them. And a little bit that is part of growing up and becoming more mature to deal with that. And one of the things for me that was quite shocking in the refugee camps is that we live in a world where people are, what would be the word? In danger, that's in such danger that they leave their home country. And not one thing is the home country and your house and the land and the society, but you also leave people that you love behind. You also leave your culture behind. You leave your education and your diplomas behind. You leave your language behind. And I have seen many people highly educated from other countries in Holland. They are treated as if they are illiterate, as if they don't know anything. And it was as if they were going through a dying process. They had to die to their identity and live in a different situation, okay, physically alive, but internally, nothing that they base their sense of self and their sense of self-respect on was there. And then they put in a camp, they can't go out, or you can go out between certain hours. They can't, it was quite a thing. And we live in a world where these things are possible. Not only possible, they happen. And it was quite a shock for me. And it's not one or two or three people, thousands of people, thousands of thousands. And these are the ones that reach. There are many more who can reach. So my understanding of life and of dying took on a completely different, what would be the word? I don't even know how to say. I saw things differently.
And a very different take on this.
Yeah, but also more grateful for my own privileges, and more inspired and more encouraged to use my own privileges for the benefit of the wider society. And even in the refugee camps, the kind of life-death situations that were there were, one was a hunger strike. There were 20 Iranian youth. They were in their early 20s. They were on hunger strike. And they were serious. They were not just playing games 2-3 days. This was under my watch also, like 20 something days. And there were a few, in the final days of the strike, they stopped drinking also. And you can't talk to them because, first of all, there is the language barrier, and they are men. And I was a young girl, 23 or something. 23, who are you? You don't know nothing. So how to deal with that? But this is where I understood that we all have certain basic things in common. And that is deeper inside. Everyone wants to be loved. Everyone wants to be respected. Everyone wants a certain peace. And if in personal interaction you tune into that deeper being, you don't need words to connect. You don't need words or a language to communicate. If your heart is clean, your intentions are clean. And they asked for me, and I don't know what, in the negotiations. And because they wanted, they wanted better circumstances, and they wanted their process to be handled quicker. And normally that is some lawyer or someone with a social background who helps them. But they wanted me to be there because they said, we don't need anyone who knows. We need someone we can trust. And so there is like a deeper bond that forms. And one of them died because he insisted. He needs what he wanted. And he died during the hunger strike. But that process, those final days, it is as if there was a certain, he felt he was dying for a cause. And he was putting strength behind the demands. And of course, when he died, they got huge publicity. And it did speed up the process of others. But to be in a situation like that, 23, 24, it makes you grow up a bit fast. And it changes your perspective on life. Because it was so simple before, but these boys, they were ready to die for a cause, a higher principle. Some deeper respect that is needed. They felt. I was quite amazed. And I felt like a coward myself. Of course, I don't know what their background was. I knew some of the things that they had been through. Anyway, this is an extraordinary situation, not an everyday life situation, but those were my first encounters with life choices, and dying.
And you bring up
I don't think I ever told you this.
Yeah, I didn't hear this before. I'm hearing it for the first time. But you bring up a very important point. Of course, it's in the context of end of life, but in any interaction, the deepest need, what everyone is looking for, is that true love, that true respect. And it's kind of bringing up memories during the pandemic.
Yeah, I wanted to say you share your pandemic experiences.
My pandemic experiences. I mean, I know we all have our individual experiences. And for me, initially, it was really about, I think I kind of woke up spiritually during that time. I had already been studying with the Brahma Kumaris for a few years, but it was kind of, I liked it, I understood it. It was very intellectual in my mind. But when you are faced with not just witnessing the dying process, but having to honor that process for others, it really kind of shook me up. And initially, it was really about, right, in healthcare, you're so focused on fixing things and getting the body better. And in the beginning of the pandemic, we were so focused on protocols, protective gear, protecting ourselves, protecting our loved ones, being strong for the patients. But then very quickly, our attention was pulled to the whole end of life. And how do we honor that? Because in that moment, even if we just met this person a few hours ago, a few days ago, their family wasn't there. So in those last moments, we were their family, and it felt like a very important responsibility. And so initially, for me, it was quite difficult because I wasn't able to apply these spiritual principles very practically. It was all about what I saw with these physical eyes, right? You're seeing people suffering, you're seeing people alone, and you feel you can't do anything. And you know, we're so subconsciously programmed in terms of who we think we are and what life is about, in the sense of we're born at a certain moment in time and we go through life trying to become someone and to attain value for ourselves. And that's all dependent on what we do, what we have, our achievements, our relationships. And then inevitably, at some stage, the journey ends and everything you've worked towards, you leave behind. And I felt like that's what I was witnessing. And I felt like I couldn't be helpful to the patients initially. And that's really when, for me, I had to take my strength from spirituality and really embrace from my heart that idea that the real self, the real you, the real me, is a spiritual being. Absolutely, innately good and beautiful, a being that is eternal, never begins, never ends. We always exist. And the real self is immortal, beyond harm. And of course, I knew all those things in my mind, but when you're pulled to just what you see, as opposed to what you don't see, it's hard to implement that in reality. But having been in those situations day in and day out, I mean, initially, I very distinctly remember behind my mask, behind the everything, I would just have to hold my tears. And as soon as I got home, I would just break down. And I realized, okay, I'm not helping them physically, but what does this soul, what does this being need to help them go through the next part of their journey? And to help me embrace that I am a soul on my journey, and this patient in front of me is also a soul going on their journey. It was where spirituality really came to life. And it helped when I kind of observed certain characteristics, you could say, of patients that I noticed that were at the end of their life. So one thing that was very clear is They couldn't see us. I mean, you see our eyes, but they really couldn't see us. They couldn't hear us, but they were very responsive to our presence, exactly like what you were saying.
Mm.
And it's really the greatest gift you can give someone, the vision you hold of them, the attitude you have of them. When you're seeing someone, are you focusing on just what you see, their body, the different labels, you know what they do? Or in my case, was I just focusing on the physical suffering, knowing that there was going to be an end and their family couldn't be there? And that sort of pure spiritual love that really is born from knowing who you really are, you could see that it gave so much strength and peace to those that knew that they were at the end of their life. And it's such a tender time for them, because I think many sort of have some inkling when it's sort of towards the end. They know that time is near, and they start thinking about many things. It's sort of a time of, reviewing their life, packing up their life, evaluating how did I live, how I was with others. And so to be in that space for them, knowing how fragile of a moment it is, to be non-judgmental. I don't know the journey that they had before, but I'm here now. I don't know the exact details of what's going to happen after, but being in that pure space of love and respect. And you could see when they had sort of finished their internal processing, there was a very deep acceptance, to the point where many of them actually looked physically better. I don't know if you noticed that. They physically looked better. There was sort of a glow, kind of a lightness about them. And the very last moments of life, you can really feel the soul, right? The living energy that is in this body, that uses this body, that is the real you. You can feel a sense of the soul sort of withdrawing from the body. And medically, okay, organs stop functioning, and we know that, but you can literally feel them sort of withdrawing, and hearing is usually the last sense to go. And it very kind of, the energy in the room was such that it almost feels like the final sort of gratitude the soul is giving to the body, a sort of thank you to this body for having served me. And now it's time for me to move on to the next part of my journey. And you could really feel that shift. And when the soul has finally left the body, you could really feel a different sense of peace in the room, a different silence. And I don't know if any of you have been in that scenario or experienced that as well. But just kind of remembering all these things, right? It's what you can see versus what you can't see. And at each moment, we have the choice of where we tune into, and our sort of conviction about where our attention needs to be. So that's kind of what I noticed, during COVID time. I don't know if you had similar experiences of noticing what people were feeling at the end of life.
Well, one big lesson that I learned, because in the geriatrics context, I had the privilege of knowing patients for a longer period of time, and caring for them, being with them, chatting with them, and seeing gradually that process of kind of detaching. But there was also a Alzheimer ward that was under the care. And so some of those patients were kind of bit confused. But what was interesting in that in the final days, many of them have actually moments that they are clear. They may have been many years not clear, but in those last few days, there are periods that they are clear, and this used to fascinate me because I mean the physiological and the biological things of the brain, they are the same, but something is happening there to give them a deeper, a certain clarity that transcends the brain. And I mean, I feel the soul is into a certain level of detachment, and it kind of functions differently and has a deeper clarity. So it helped me understand how, whether we know or not know, whether we understand or not understand, this is natural process. The being of consciousness as if prepares to leave this vehicle and the things of the vehicle and the interactions and the possessions of this vehicle. It is as if something loosens, some hold on it, some attachment to it, some identification with it loosens. And then there is a perception that transcends, which I found fascinating. And I felt this was like physical, medical proof for the soul. Of course, my colleagues did not agree with me, but for me, I don't need anybody to agree for me to understand. And this helped me tremendously understand myself as a spiritual being, a being of consciousness, and that this life is a human experience, but that there's, in any experience, you can enjoy, you can learn, you can share, you can care, but it will go. It will, there is an end to it, and you will move on to another experience. And we don't need to identify ourselves based on this body or even gender or job. We are spiritual beings, and this is just a part I'm acting out. And another thing that, it is quite a while back, I was trying to remember, preparing for tonight. Many people in the final stage of many of the patients I've seen in the final stages, as if they're trying to put right things that have not been right, like some unfinished business, and certain things there are regrets. Because I remember there was one man who, during his life, he was not so nice to his wife, and he had more than one family out there, and he had many children. And but the one who came to his bedside 3 times a day with food, with clothes, with love, with everything, was that wife. And I worked there for 8 or 9 years, and I have seen her for many years. 3 times a day she was there. And every time that she was there, it was like a mirror for him. And at some stage, I had a conversation with him, and he said to me, "Doctor, make sure you don't do ever anything that will make you regret at the end of your life." And so this is something that I have learned during that period, to live and to act and to say things and to interact. Aim to do that with a quality that you never will regret. Because as if end of life, there is also like a mirror of how I have lived my life. And you never know who will be by your side in those final moments. Someone one time said to me, which made a deep impact, this life has its end, no? This body has its expiry date. That I don't have choice. But how the final time will be, that you have as choice, because that is based on the quality of actions you perform during your life, of the quality of thoughts you have cultivated during your life, of the quality of attitude you have towards others, of the quality of relationships you have created and sustained with others. That will also decide the quality of your last stage of life. Will there be a sense of gratitude? Will there be a sense of fulfillment? Will there be a sense of love and warmth? Or will there be a sense of resentment or hatred or whatever? So those are some two things that I, at this moment, clearly remember as life's lessons.
And, to add on to what you just said, like the last moment of life is like the final act of life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as you said, how we live our life is how we will
and leave also,
right?
Yeah.
And so one thing also, or two things that became very clear in this whole process is, and based on the spiritual understanding, is that we are guests here. We are guests in this body. When we're done, return it back to Mother Nature. We're guests in our families. We're guests on this planet. And I think when we really take that to heart, we definitely approach everything differently.
Yeah.
Not just end of life, but life and interactions in general. In the sense that, I mean, not to give a silly example, but when you go traveling somewhere and you go to an Airbnb, you're not there thinking about, okay, I'm going to take this table home with me, and you're not planning how you're going to take the bed sheets with you. You're just kind of there.
Use
it, very grateful. And then that I have to leave at some stage. I'm not going to take anything with me, but very grateful for the experience. And our life is actually very similar, right? As spiritual beings, we take this body, we come into this life, go through the journey, and then at some stage we leave. But when we embrace that, the love we kind of give others is very different, right? We love everybody. When you remember with this consciousness of being a guest here, we love everybody, we love everything, but we hold them very lightly, right? Because we know I'm a guest passing through this experience. That one is also a spiritual being passing through their experience. And also the idea that we are trustees. So everything I have, including everyone I interact with, including this body, has been entrusted to me. So I have it for a certain amount of time. I take care of it with utmost care. I interact with my children, my spouse, my parents with utmost care. But I know they're not really mine forever, because the soul will go on my journey, and they will go on their journey. And so it generates a different feeling of love, of respect, of, I would say, living lightly, meaning do everything with utmost care, interact with everybody with utmost care, but no strings attached. So I know that for me really came to life, seeing this whole journey.
One aspect that I started to appreciate more during the pain clinic time is to see life as a precious gift. And of course, this whole concept of we are guests on this planet, we are guests in this body. For a guest coming to New York City, every moment is a gift. Every moment is extra. And to be able to live with that feeling is quite wonderful. Somebody looks at you as a gift. Somebody smiles at you as a gift. People meeting is a gift. It rains is a gift. It snows is a gift. The sun shines is also a gift. To have that internal attitude towards life, it is an extra gift. We are visitors, and it is an extra gift. It helps to shift your attitude, and also it helps to not desperately hold on to things and to people. When we meet, it is beautiful, and how to say. You are good when someone is there, you are also good when they are not there. That internally more healthy state. And I mean, it is easy to talk about these things. No? As long as they do not come to me. So I thought, let me share one experience. Of course, I cannot share about the death of this body, but the father of this body, when he became terminally ill, and in the space of 8 months or so from the diagnosis to the soul leaving the body, and experiencing that very close up, but not as a doctor, but as a daughter, that is a very different experience, but I felt that was even more beautiful. Because what happened is during that time, he also became more open to spirituality and asked me about what is meditation all about. And so we had quite interesting discussions about the soul and the body and the soul's journey and the different laws that rule the drama of life. And he started meditating, to my surprise. Almost all the time, he became paralyzed from the neck down. So he was in the bed, and he started to listen to the meditation commentaries. And he said, I have longed for this since I was a young boy. And what happened is that from a fighting, sad, angry man that he was when he was dealing with the diagnosis, he became so sweet and so gentle and so peaceful. And my mother said, this is the man I married so many years ago. Now I'm seeing it again. And he, at some stage, my cousins came who were close to him, and they started crying. And he said to them, please don't cry. This illness, and he was in quite a bit of physical pain, this illness has helped me to discover who I really am, and has helped me regain certain peace that I have been looking for a long time. So there is nothing to be sad about. And I overheard him saying this to them. And I was quite pleased. how he dealt with his final moments or his final months, because he started to draw on spiritual knowledge. And he used to ask me, come and just sit and meditate with me. Come and sit and meditate with me. Come and sit and meditate, because I want to experience bodilessness. He used to call it like that. In the body, but the awareness of the self as a being of light. The awareness of the self as a being of consciousness. And the whole room became light. I don't even know, not a physical light, but it felt so light in that room. And there was so much peace in his room that personnel from the clinic, they wanted to come in his room. They looked for excuses to be with him. And so I saw the effect of my meditation practices, my lifestyle principles, and he adopted them in the space of 2 months or so. He imbibed in himself, and I saw how it made him a different person, and he was able to deal with this life situation in such a dignified way. And I remember when we were younger, when I was young, I was a teenager, he one time told me he's not afraid of anything in this world except losing my mother and his children. We are two, no? Son and he said, that is the only thing that I don't know how I will handle. I'm scared of that. And he, during growing up, I have heard him say that one or few times. And in that period, he said to me, it is okay. We all are okay. I'm going in peace. The day before, he was in coma for 2 days. And the day before he went in coma, he told me that it is okay. Everyone is good. I am in peace. And I just, yeah. There was a time when I couldn't think even perceive the idea that my parents would not be there. This was just something that was not possible even to cross my mind. But through basic understanding that there is a physical dimension and that there is a non-physical dimension, that this body is part of the physical dimension, but the real self, the being of consciousness, is part of the non-physical dimension. And we all are beings of consciousness, invisible experiencers. And that even though something finishes at a physical level, doesn't mean things finish at a non-physical level. And it not only gave a lot of comfort, but it made a lot of sense. But it also makes me able to live life and face the inevitable with dignity and with serenity.
And what you are sharing about your dad, it's actually very touching, and how beautiful it is to give that gift in terms of allowing him to know who he truly is and experience his real nature.
Yeah.
Right?
He was a different person. Yeah. It was quite amazing. It was the same person, but at the same time he was.
And I'm sure for you,
so
you
peaceful.
also had to go beyond that this is my father and say, well, no, this is a soul going through his journey, and what is the best gift I can give him.
Yeah. My mother, who is not spiritual, she knows some things, but she's not practicing anything. But she says anytime she thinks of him now, his face doesn't come to her mind, but the face of a teenage girl with a plait in India. That's what she says. So anytime sometimes I ask her, Ma, do you remember his face? She said, I have to look at the picture. Because in her mind, what comes to mind is a girl with a plait in
Wow.
India. So even my mother also, of course, there was a time afterwards that she had to deal with things, especially with will and those type. It brings you a different energy. But even my mother, during that period, she did not feel she was losing anyone, and that I have very strongly. Anyway, what I received from him, I can never lose. That has impacted me for always. But that soul is there, continuing the journey. And maybe someday we will meet again. That's fine, but there are many other souls.
Now, kind of taking your dad's story, because I think there's one important thing I want to make sure we cover. That, okay, we know the soul is on a journey, continuing on. But for those that are left behind, family members, and I don't know if you experienced this because you were already deep into the spiritual studies, but maybe your other family members. How did you help those that were sort of really missing, like your cousins, right? Missing your dad. Yes, they know he is a soul and he's the real being is eternal. But how did you help support them?
To be very honest, they were a bit annoyed with us. Because they felt we did not love him because we did not cry. Because myself, my brother, my sister-in-law, my mother, because we were with him during that journey 24/7 almost. We were in a different space. And the cousins would just come every now and then and visit and couldn't understand what we were feeling. And so they were at of course, they were there at the cremation, but they were a bit annoyed that we were not crying. And so afterwards, we all went home and we shared nice memories of him. And my mother said to all of them, actually, he would not have wanted us to cry. He would not have wanted us to be sad. And I was a bit surprised by her saying that. And she said, he will be happy if we will be at ease, in peace, and if we are loving each other, she said. But they were a bit annoyed with us because they could not understand that we were not crying. But I personally felt if I would have been sad, I would have dishonored his journey and his efforts also. And he really would not have wanted us to be sad.
I think one thing that's very helpful to know, especially for the family members that are left behind, that the soul for some time is still very receptive to your thoughts, your feelings, your energy, and really sending thoughts of love, of good wishes, of peace, really helps that soul pass through to the next part of their journey. And it's really a journey, right? So it's like you're kind of saying to them, good wishes for the onward trip, or thank you for being part of my life and enriching my life, and realizing that taking the time to really send that soul those vibrations, because it's healing for you and it helps the soul as well.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we should open it up for some comments or questions. Anyone on Zoom or anyone here? Feel free. You want to say anything or ask anything? Can you please put it in the mic? No, they cannot hear.
So you both were the doctors,
Mm.
right? Did you feel low, or what made you to go to the spiritual journey altogether? You left your
Mm.
profession and you went on this path.
Mm.
I just want to understand, because I used to go to Mother Teresa's NGO,
Yeah.
and I used to feel very low seeing those orphan children suffering like this. I used to really feel, how could the parents just disown their own child?
Yeah.
Right? That made me feel very low. So I used to come back home and I used to cry.
Mm.
So my doctors just suggested, just stop going. You do it because you're not able to do it emotionally. Just do it financially in whatever way you can. So I stopped going, and I don't know whether it helped me or not, but I definitely went on the spiritual journey altogether.
Mm.
And I belong to India. We already are very spiritual.
Yeah.
So that further helped me to be grateful to this life. But I just want to understand, why did you guys leave your profession and completely came into this thing?
Anjali did not leave. No, she came from work here. She's still working. Well, I came across spirituality by accident. I was not really I was looking for a course in public speaking, assertive, being able to speak. And but that was all too expensive. But I generally kind of stayed away from gurus and all of that, because I thought, nah, this I'm just asking you plenty money. And so there was a course that was for free in racism and positive thinking. So my friend said, we can't find a course in public speaking. Let's do this. Maybe it will help us. And the positive thinking part was done by someone from the Brahma Kumaris. And I was struck by her piece, by the beautiful, harmonious, peaceful eyes that she had. And you could see that what she said, she lived what she was saying. So I was kind of impressed by that. And I thought I had to find out what she's doing. And so she said, come, I'll show you, come to the meditation center. I said, how much does it cost? She said, it's free. It doesn't cost anything. So I said, okay, then I'll try it out. But I liked very much what I heard. And this was in my second, third year of medicine. But then the spiritual knowledge that I got, I thought, wow, I should study this, not medicine. But I did both. I studied both. And I stopped practicing, not because I chose to. I went to a country, I went to the Dominican Republic to help set up the meditation center of the Brahma Kumaris in that country. And in that country, my my certificate is not valid. The European certificate is not valid in the Dominican Republic. Or you have to do some courses and whatever. I said, I'm not going to do that. So I thought I'd just go for a year and then go back. But that year became 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. And so it was not that I consciously said, I'm going to stop working. It just kind of happened, becoming more and more busy with the service activities of the Brahma Kumaris. And then from there, I came here, and here is the same. My diplomas are not valid. And now it has been too long anyway. I would have to go go through medical school all over again, which I am not planning to do. Although I'm fascinated with, still I feel fascinated with medicine, and physiology is something I always, but actually having medical knowledge made me more spiritual, because seeing how the body functions, knowing the perfection in certain physiological processes just made me more convinced there is more to it than just some. And also it made me understand the being operating the body, two different entities. But Anjali is still practicing. Like I said, and her pandemic is just, she full-fledged experienced that from the inside. I used to be so, impressed by how she carried through that period of time. I think we all know how under pressure the healthcare workers were in that time, and it's amazing. I think we grow up very fast in those situations. Yes. Come in, it's okay. Yeah, yeah. If you sit there, that's okay. Yeah. So, any other questions or comments?
We talked about physical body or soul going on journey that is inevitable. But in your life, there are other things inevitable that you touched at the beginning of the session. We didn't talk about how to accept that and move on.
The topic of today was mainly facing
Okay.
end of life as the inevitable. But yes, there are other things that are inevitable. Yeah. Of course, that will be a whole other session to go into the depth of that. But there is another phenomenon. One thing is physical death, but another thing is ego death, which is actually the most painful thing. And many situations in life that are inevitable, they are kind of confronting us with some ego, some deeper limited perspective on things. And they want to teach us that lesson. Drop the ego. Drop that limited perspective. See bigger, see beyond, see higher. I don't know if Anjali want to say anything. We anyway almost have to stop also.
Anybody on Zoom?
Nothing on Zoom right now.
Just want to say thank you to both of you. Very nice. Very informative, helpful.
I would like to ask question. One question. And Anjali would know when I'm asking. What do you think? And it always puzzled me, this particular question. So what do you think? Sometimes there are mediums who connect with the soul. And people who believe in it, and they invoke that kind of connection. For me, it is very difficult to understand. So,
You can answer.
I know it is a phenomena that is out there, and I know that many people venture into that. I don't have experience personally with that. And also cultural background, we were encouraged to stay away from those things. But I know certain people have certain gifts. But at the same time, I think always be careful, because there are many charlatans out there that I think also people who just out there trying to make money out of your sorrow and suffering. But the other thing also is, I feel even if there are people who are able to make some connection or whatever it is that they're doing, that soul is on the journey onwards. Why would I want to pull them back out of my own, what is it, some
Like need for closure.
need for whatever it is. With the knowledge I have at this present moment and with the consciousness that I have at this present moment, if I leave this body, I would prefer everybody to just send me good wishes and peace and let me go on and not pull me back with some medium or whatever. So whatever the phenomena is that exists around that, I personally would not choose to venture into that. But even those who do, I think, do with much care and discernment. That's what I could say out of my heart. I don't know. There's one aspect that we did not touch on, but in the meditation, it is not only souls and understanding of soul, but there is also the understanding and spirituality of the Supreme Soul, one who is forever wise, one who is forever beyond limited consciousness, one who is forever peaceful and forever loving. So if at all I want to connect with some soul, then I would prefer to connect with the Supreme that brings out the highest in me. And another thing also, I remember there was one of my patients. She was always, many years, I think 14 years or so, she was depressed because there was one son that she had lost. But she had 5 other children. And she was always lamenting and depressed and lamenting of the one that has moved on. But there are 4 or 5 others around you. You know, that is some other thing. We sometimes, look for something else whilst they're right in front of us. There are so many other options. I don't know. Maybe I'm too down to earth, but let us pay attention to those who are there with us right here, right now. Okay. Shall we close? You want to close with the meditation? Let's close with a few minutes of meditation.
And take a deep breath in and out. And just allow the body to relax. And become aware of the real self, the inner being. You can use the image of a tiny star of living light in the center of the forehead, behind the eyes. This is the real you. A guest in this body. A guest on this planet Earth. A guest everywhere in this human experience. And as a guest, there is a deep feeling of gratitude. A feeling of inner fullness. Knowing that truth. That I am timeless. Immortal being of light. Passing through the variety of scenes of life. There to give, to share, to love, and to learn. And from that space of inner fullness, I share that deep love and respect with each one I encounter. Tiny star of living light. Is who I am and who I forever will be. Thank you.
Maybe just a quick reminder for those, if you don't know, this Monday, a meditation course is starting for 7 days. So those who have interest, you're most welcome. Of course, we encourage everyone in person. But if you can't in person, there is also possibility online. And there's also the possibility to do some days in person, some days online. But for the online information, you would need to register. But if you're coming in person, you don't need to register. Okay. 6:30 to 8. No, in the evening. Monday to Sunday. Okay. Most welcome. Have a good evening. Have a good weekend.